My name is Emily. One ordinary workday, my parents demanded a huge amount of money with zero explanation and a lot of pressure. I didn't send it. I showed up instead and uncovered something I wasn't supposed to see. If you've faced family money pressure, share your story in the comments. The text from my parents had 3 words: send $50K ASAP. No explanation, no follow-up call, no deadline beyond the word ASAP, which somehow felt louder than an exclamation point. The message landed while I was at my desk, halfway through reconciling vendor invoices. I stepped into the hallway and called my mom. She answered on the second ring. "What's going on?" "Family stuff," she said. "For what?" "You don't need to ask." In the background, I could hear my dad breathing, close enough to the phone that he was clearly listening, far enough that he didn't say a word. I repeated the question, slower this time. My mom repeated the same sentence, unchanged, like it was scripted. "I'm not sending that kind of money without knowing why." There was a pause. "We don't have time for this," she said. The call ended. I sat there staring at the screen, the text still open, the number still untransferred. Instead of going back to my desk, I grabbed my keys. When my parents say they're busy, it usually means they're somewhere they don't want questioned. They had mentioned an appointment earlier that week. No details, just running errands. The address led me to a high-end car dealership across town. Walking through the front doors, I spotted them immediately. My parents were seated at a small desk with a salesman. Papers were spread out in neat stacks. A glossy brochure sat between them, folded open to a page showing a car I knew they couldn't afford outright. The salesman looked up first. "Oh, Emily Miller?" he said, smiling. "Yes," I answered, slowing down. "Perfect. We were just waiting for you to sign as the guarantor." Both of my parents turned at the same time. My mom's smile froze halfway. My dad stood up too quickly. "That's not happening," I said. My dad waved his hand. "You just need to re-sign so it matches. It's already been discussed." I leaned closer to the desk. My full legal name was printed on the loan packet. Not handwritten, typed, clean, prepared. The signature date listed was next Friday, the same day I was scheduled to be out of state for work. "I need this stopped," I said to the salesman. He hesitated, then nodded. "Of course, it's just procedure." He handed me a small paper slip with a number on it and gestured toward a row of chairs. I looked down at it, then back up at him. The idea of taking a number while my name was on a loan I hadn't agreed to felt almost impressive in its calmness. A few minutes later, a man in a dark jacket walked over holding the folder with my name on it. "Miss Miller," he said, "we need to verify some information." Every conversation in the room seemed to stall as he spoke, and all eyes settled on me while the glass doors slid shut behind him. No one questioned my parents as the folder stayed open. The bank manager asked me to step into a small office, leaving my parents at the desk with their papers still open. He spoke calmly, explaining that anything tied to my name was now paused until verification finished. My parents nodded like cooperative customers while I was handed a brochure about fraud prevention and escorted out. By the next morning, the pause had spread. My checking account still worked, but credit transfers were flagged. A polite alert sat on my banking app. It thanked me for my patience. My parents called relatives before I could explain anything myself. A group chat lit up before lunch. "Why are you doing this to them?" my aunt wrote. "Your parents are just trying to get by," an uncle added. My mom followed with, "Emily is under a lot of stress lately." No one asked what actually happened. The story was already neat enough. That afternoon, finance asked me to come upstairs. The director closed the door and slid a printed notice across the table. It explained that a risk alert connected to my credit profile had appeared overnight. "This doesn't mean wrongdoing," she said, "but it does mean review." Questions followed about outside obligations, dependents, and guarantees. Each one landed carefully, like boxes being checked instead of concerns being heard. When the meeting ended, my access badge still worked, but the tone had shifted. Conversation stopped when I approached. At my desk, Maya rolled her chair over. Don't explain, she said. Don't argue. Save everything. She had already watched something similar happen to her cousin. Family pressure, rushed paperwork, then blame when systems slowed down. She told me to screenshot texts, download statements, and stop answering calls. That night, my parents hosted a quick family meeting. Everyone sat around the dining table like it was a holiday, minus the food. My dad spoke first. "This is a misunderstanding. You embarrassed us today," my mom said. "I asked why my name was on a loan I never agreed to." No one looked up. "You always said you'd help if we needed it," my dad replied. "That doesn't mean this," I said. Voices overlapped. Cousins said I was being dramatic. An aunt said banks overreact. Someone mentioned how hard paperwork is for older people now. No one asked why the paperwork had already been prepared. The next morning, I logged into the bank portal and downloaded everything available: drafts, signature pages, revision logs. One detail stood out. The signature sample wasn't current. It matched an older version of my name, from years before. I forwarded the file to myself and labeled it plainly. By midday, my mom started messaging relatives again. "She's having money problems. We're worried about her stability." A cousin offered budgeting advice. An older relative said she'd talk sense into me. Each message treated this like a personal issue, not a document one. Maya sent one line back when I showed her. "They're setting the narrative." An automated email arrived from the bank thanking me for my feedback and asking me to rate my experience. A smiley icon sat at the bottom. I closed it. Before the next call came in, a new folder opened on my laptop. Statements, screenshots, emails, forms, each dropped in, one after another. The folder name stayed boring and specific. Later that afternoon, the bank manager called again. He said my parents had contacted customer relations about confusion and distress. "They're considered vulnerable clients," he said. "And I'm not?" There was a pause, followed by a reminder about policy. Notes from customer relations were now attached to my file. The pause remained. A formal notice followed. 72 hours, he said. After that, it moves to formal review. The call ended. The app refreshed. The alert stayed. I reopened the folder, renamed it with the deadline date, checked the timestamp twice, and watched the countdown continue. The folder on my laptop kept growing. Emails, attachments, old scans I hadn't opened in years. Most of them came from a period when my parents refinanced their house. At the time, they said it was routine. A few signatures to speed things up. Nothing risky. Buried in a cloud backup was a scanned document labeled with a date from 2 years earlier. Power of attorney. My name, my signature, my parents listed as beneficiaries for a specific refinancing transaction. I remembered signing it at their kitchen table, my mom sliding the paper over with a pen already uncapped. Scrolling further down, a paragraph sat under the main clause. Short. Vague. It allowed them to use my name as a guarantor when necessary. The wording didn't stand out back then. Now, it matched the exact phrase my mom had used on the phone. When necessary. The loan packet at the dealership hadn't been rushed. My name wasn't added last minute. It had been typed, formatted, and dated ahead of time. The timing wasn't sloppy. It was intentional. My dad called while I was staring at the screen. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," he said. "I didn't agree to this," I replied. "You did," he said. "On paper," I added. He lowered his voice. "If you don't cooperate, we'll tell the lawyer you agreed verbally, that you knew what this was." The call ended before I responded. Instead of calling back, I drove to the bank branch listed on the loan documents. A different location from the dealership, quieter, more official. The receptionist handed me a form labeled Objection to Authorization. The banker glanced through it. "You're contesting consent," he said. "Yes." "Do you have proof today?" "Not yet." He nodded like he'd heard that answer many times. Submitting the objection triggered more than I expected. By the time I got back to my car, a notification hit my phone. A full review had been opened, not just the car loan. Everything tied to my name and theirs. An email followed with a bold header marked Urgent. Under it, in smaller text, the system explained that processing could take 10 to 15 business days. The timing felt almost polite. Maya texted after work. That move poked the system. I know. Good. Just know it pokes back. By evening, my parents' lawyer emailed a formal letter. It accused me of interfering with a lawful transaction and requested that I stop contacting financial institutions related to the loan. The wording was stiff, impersonal, confident. Attached was a copy of the power of attorney, highlighted where it said, "When necessary." I forwarded everything to the same folder. The name stayed the same. No dramatic labels, just dates. Another call came from the bank, this time from someone higher up. He explained that because of the objection, the bank needed to review prior authorizations for consistency. That's standard, he said. And my parents? They're aware. Later that night, a cousin messaged asking if I was okay. She'd heard I was blocking my parents' finances. No one asked about the paperwork. The story kept shrinking into something simpler. At home, I printed the documents and laid them out on the table. 2 signatures didn't match, one from years ago, one from last week. Same name, different slant, different pressure. The phone buzzed again, a voicemail from my mom. "We did this because we trusted you'd understand," she said. "This didn't have to turn into a legal thing." I didn't respond. Instead, another email arrived from the bank confirming receipt of my objection. It thanked me for my patience during the investigation. Attached was a reference number. Before shutting the laptop, one more message came through. The subject line carried the law firm's name. Cease interference. The body explained that any further action on my part could be interpreted as bad faith. It warned of consequences. The cursor hovered over the reply field for a second. Then the message joined the others in the folder. The folder stayed open. The reference number blinked at the top of the screen while the clock in the corner ticked forward. Cheongbon, crossing the line. The credit alert came first. A short notification, neutral in tone, explaining that my score had been adjusted pending review. No accusation, no apology. Just a change that would sit there until someone decided otherwise. At work, the impact showed up before anyone said a word. A meeting invite disappeared from my calendar. When I asked my manager about it, he closed his door and spoke carefully. "Given the uncertainty, we're shifting the project," he said. "For now." The project had been months of work. My name vanished from the file by the end of the day. No drama, just reassignment. Later, the bank sent an update. My parents had submitted a copy of the power of attorney. The message said it plainly. They maintained I had given permission. An aunt texted soon after. "You didn't have to make this legal," she wrote. "They're scared." No one asked what scared them enough to use my name. Maya met me after work. She listened while scrolling through the documents on her phone. "This clause," she said, tapping the screen, "was written by the same firm that's threatening you now." The realization landed without noise. The vague language wasn't accidental. It had been designed to stretch. The lawyer representing my parents now was the same one who drafted the paperwork back then. That meant the setup wasn't recent. A call came in from my dad that evening. "The lawyer says you're overreacting," he said. "You put me on a loan," I replied. "We had authority." The conversation ended the same way all the others had. No denial, just justification. Maya didn't offer solutions. She pointed out patterns, times I'd co-signed, forms I'd forwarded without reading because someone needed something fast. Each favor framed as temporary, each favor leaving a footprint. "This wasn't the first time," she said. "It's just the first time you stopped it." Direct confrontations stopped working. Family meetings turned into lectures. Messages shifted from concern to accusation. I stopped responding. The bank followed up with another notice. My objection was acknowledged. The review was ongoing. My parents' accounts remained active. Mine stayed flagged. One more email arrived from the law firm. It reminded me that interfering could affect familial trust and legal standing. I forwarded it. A few hours later, my mother left a voicemail. "We don't understand why you're doing this," she said. "You know we'd never hurt you." The words didn't match the documents. At my kitchen table, the papers were stacked in order. Original signatures, revised clauses, emails with polite language hiding urgency. Everything led back to the same point. My name had become a tool. Maya called again. "You can't fix this by arguing," she said. "You need to move it out of the family lane." She meant escalation, formal channels, the kind that didn't care about intentions. The bank's website listed a department for fraud review, a separate intake, separate timeline, separate people. I opened the form and started filling it out. Name, account, reference number, supporting documents. Halfway through, another text came from a cousin asking if I needed help budgeting. I didn't answer. The form asked whether the authorization was obtained under pressure, whether there was misrepresentation, whether there was ongoing risk. Each checkbox moved the situation from uncomfortable to official. The confirmation page loaded slowly. It thanked me for my submission and explained that additional information might be requested. A calendar link appeared at the bottom. I selected the next available slot. The appointment confirmed. A date, a time, a case number. The stack of papers went back into the folder. The folder slid into my bag. The phone buzzed again, but the screen stayed dark as the fraud department's confirmation sat open, waiting for the next step. Chung-nam, what I missed. The official notice arrived just after noon. Not an alert, not a warning. A document. It explained that my credit file had been formally flagged pending investigation and that unresolved findings could affect future lending decisions. The language stayed neutral. The impact didn't. At work, nothing new happened. That was the point. No emails, no reassignment back to the project, just a quiet confirmation that the pause wasn't temporary anymore. Maya met me for lunch without asking questions. She waited until the receipt was folded and the table cleared. "This is the bottom," she said. "It looks like it." The folder sat between us, not dramatic, just thick. Each document inside it represented a moment when speed had mattered more than clarity. Looking through it again, patterns became hard to ignore. Forms signed quickly because someone was waiting. Emails answered late at night because a problem needed fixing. Clauses skimmed because the headline said, "Standard." Every favor had been framed the same way. Temporary, necessary, family. Maya flipped to the power of attorney. "This language is flexible on purpose," she said, "and you trusted it." That part didn't sting because it was true. I'd assumed that taking responsibility early prevented conflict later. Signing fast kept things calm. Asking fewer questions kept things moving. The calls from my parents slowed, replaced by messages that sounded rehearsed. Each one stressed urgency without detail. Each one leaned on the same assumption that I would step in before anyone else had to. Maya broke the rhythm. "There's one more name you should know," she said. She slid her phone over. An employee listed on the refinance paperwork from 2 years ago. A mid-level bank officer, no longer at the same branch. He transferred last year, she added, to a smaller office across town. The name didn't mean anything yet. The timing did. That refinance had been the first time my name appeared on a major document tied to my parents' finances. Contacting him would reopen everything. That meant more than frozen accounts. It meant audits, formal interviews, a paper trail that wouldn't stop at the car loan. Maya didn't push. She just laid out the shape of it. "If you do this," she said, "there's no soft landing for them." The next voicemail from my mom came in while we were still sitting there. "We don't know why you're dragging this out," she said. "You know how this ends if you keep going." The threat wasn't specific. It didn't need to be. Back at my desk later, the bank portal refreshed with the same status. Under review. Estimated completion, unknown. A small banner reminded me that unresolved issues could impact eligibility for future services. I clicked into the case file. Notes had been added. Customer relations had logged multiple calls from my parents describing confusion and distress. My objection sat below them, summarized in 2 sentences. No context, just position. The mistake wasn't trusting them once. It was assuming trust didn't need maintenance. Each time a line blurred, it stayed blurred. Each time I absorbed risk quietly, it became expected. Maya messaged again before the afternoon ended. "If you're going to do it," she wrote, "do it clean." The bank's fraud department had a separate contact page. No phone number, just an intake form. It asked for full legal name, account numbers, and a description of the issue. Halfway down, a checkbox appeared. Do you believe your authorization was misused beyond its intended scope? Checking it triggered another question, then another. Dates, names, attachments. The old employee's name went into the field labeled Individuals Involved. Another voicemail came in. My dad this time. "We didn't think you'd take it this far," he said. "You're forcing our hand." The form didn't react. It stayed open, waiting. Submitting meant formal escalation, not a family disagreement. Not a misunderstanding, a record. The cursor hovered over the final field asking whether I consented to a full historical review of documents associated with my name. That review would pull everything forward. Every signature, every amendment, every time convenience replaced clarity. There was no version where this stayed contained. The checkbox was selected, the attachments uploaded, the reference number pasted in. Before second guessing could creep in, the email application opened. A new message addressed to the fraud department, subject line specific, language plain. The request asked for a complete audit trail of all document revisions, approvals, and authorizations connected to my name across accounts tied to my parents. The send button stayed blue. Once pressed, there would be no pretending this was about feelings. The cursor moved once. The message went out. The laptop closed while the confirmation banner was still loading, cutting it off mid-refresh. Chung Sao, bigger than me. The reply from the fraud department didn't arrive as an apology or a warning. It came as a calendar invite, a formal subject line, names I didn't recognize copied on it, my role listed as related party. Before that meeting happened, more documents unlocked. The audit trail request pulled files I'd never seen, not tied to the car loan, older, different accounts, different names. My parents' names appeared repeatedly, sometimes as primary holders, sometimes as authorized users. Then other names showed up, familiar ones, a cousin, an in-law, another relative I hadn't spoken to in years. Each file followed the same pattern: temporary authority, vague language, a signature added to help things move along. None of the amounts were small. None of the authorizations were clean. This wasn't about a car. One account carried notes about restructuring debt ahead of a legal deadline. Another showed a balance transferred twice in under a year. The timing lined up with the urgency I'd heard in my parents' voices. The pressure, the rushed tone, the insistence that this couldn't wait. The ASAP text wasn't panic. It was scheduling. Maya saw the files that night. "This is credit cycling," she said. "They're moving liability around to avoid default." That explained the dealership, the refinance, the same law firm appearing every time something needed to look legitimate fast. The law firm didn't wait long to respond. A new letter arrived stating that all authorizations were made under mutual family consent. It argued that shared understanding replaced formal revocation. The phrase implied agreement appeared more than once. They claimed any documents I produced fell within accepted scope. Then came the witness shift. A relative I trusted called unexpectedly. "I talked to your parents' lawyer," she said. "They asked if you knew about the plan." I stayed quiet. "I told them you didn't object," she continued. "You never said no back then." The line went dead before I could answer. That statement landed fast. If it stuck, everything I'd submitted could be reframed as participation, not misuse, not fraud, a family arrangement that went sideways. The bank followed up with a clarification. Because of the expanding scope, my status had changed. No longer a complainant, now a person of interest. The phrasing didn't come with emotion, just a procedural update. Maya called immediately. "They're trying to pull you into shared liability," she said. "That witness statement matters." The documents kept filling the folder. Emails between my parents and the law firm discussing options. Phrases like rotate responsibility and temporary cover appeared in writing. None of it mentioned consent directly. All of it assumed access. A voicemail from my dad came through late. "We were protecting the family," he said. "You're making it worse." The logic stayed consistent. What hurt was the scale. This hadn't been one bad decision. It was a system, one that relied on people like me not stopping it. The calendar invite updated with more attendees: a compliance officer, a fraud investigator, legal review. My name stayed in the middle. The meeting description said fact-finding. No one called to ask how this felt. No one needed to. The process moved without checking. Another email from the law firm followed, warning that false claims could carry civil consequences. It suggested cooperation would be viewed favorably. Cooperation meant silence. The bank sent a separate message confirming receipt of additional third-party statements. No details, just confirmation. Maya didn't try to reassure me. "This is the part where they count on you backing off," she said, "because it's bigger than you." The meeting agenda attached later that night listed discussion points: authorization scope, intent, pattern of use. Pattern was the word that mattered. At my desk, the documents sat open. Each file told the same story, with different names swapped in. Authority granted in moments of trust. Expanded quietly. Used repeatedly. My involvement had been one spoke in a wheel. The appointment reminder pinged. Time, location, virtual link. My role stayed unchanged. I clicked accept. The confirmation locked in. No option to reschedule without approval. Another message arrived immediately after, outlining confidentiality expectations. The folder closed. The laptop stayed open. The calendar entry pulsed once before settling into place, marking the point where this stopped being something I started and became something I was pulled into, whether I liked it or not. Chungbai, receipts on the table. The meeting started on time. A video link, muted squares, last names instead of first. The bank's compliance officer opened with a reminder about confidentiality. The fraud investigator outlined the agenda. Two lawyers appeared on opposite sides of the screen, one representing the bank, the other representing my parents. No one asked how anyone was doing. I didn't speak until asked. "Emily," the investigator said, "you indicated you had additional documentation." "Yes." The screen share button lit up. A folder opened. No preface, no summary, just files. The first document showed a timeline. Revision logs pulled directly from the bank's system. Each entry stamped with a date, a time, and a user ID. "This shows the authorization clause was edited," I said. "Here." The cursor circled the line. The edit date landed 3 weeks after the power of attorney expired. The bank's lawyer leaned forward. "That could be a system sync issue," he said. My parents' lawyer spoke next. "These platforms aren't always accurate," he added. "We've seen timestamps misalign." No response. The next file opened. An internal message thread between bank employees. Names redacted, except one. The same mid-level officer Maya had flagged. The email subject read, "Request to adjust language for guarantor use." The body was short. "Client requests flexibility to proceed. Please update clause to reflect practical authorization." Below it, a reply. "Confirmed. Adjustment made per discussion." The room didn't react right away. "That email doesn't prove intent," my parents' lawyer said. "It reflects a misunderstanding." Another document replaced it, a follow-up message from the same employee weeks later. "Authorization expired. Client asking if coverage still stands." The reply came from my parents' email address. "We'll take responsibility. Please proceed." Silence held for a moment. The fraud investigator spoke. "To clarify," she said, "this request came directly from your parents?" "Yes," I said. The bank's lawyer asked for a moment to review. The compliance officer muted. The other lawyer stayed visible, his expression flat. No one argued the dates. The investigator returned. "These edits occurred after formal authority ended," she said. "That places the transaction outside acceptable scope." My parents' lawyer tried again. "This was a family arrangement," he said. "Emily never objected until recently." Another file opened, a screenshot of my objection submission, time-stamped, attached reference number, followed by an internal note marking my parents' accounts as under review, not mine. "I objected before the loan finalized," I said. "That's on record." The investigator nodded once. She looked back to the screen. "We're not here to assign motive," she said. "We're here to assess misuse." The word hung there, not raised, not softened. The bank's lawyer cleared his throat. "Based on this," he said, "we'll need to initiate protective measures." "What does that mean?" my parents' lawyer asked. The investigator answered. "Immediate freeze on transactions associated with the accounts in question," she said, "pending further review." My parents' lawyer objected. "Procedure, hardship, impact." The investigator didn't interrupt. "This won't be resolved quickly," she added evenly. "These cases rarely are." The timing landed wrong in the room. After weeks of urgency, the confirmation that nothing would move fast felt almost ironic. The compliance officer unmuted. "We'll issue notices today," he said. "Formal summons will follow." The bank's lawyer nodded. "Documents will be served electronically," he added, "and by mail." My parents' lawyer requested a recess. Denied. A final file appeared on screen, a short audit summary, patterns highlighted, repeated clause changes, multiple beneficiaries, rotating exposure. No one disputed it. The investigator closed the folder. "Thank you," she said. "This concludes the evidentiary portion." Before the call ended, an automated message popped up in the chat. "Transaction freeze confirmed." Another followed. "Summons issued." My parents' lawyer signed off without comment. The bank's lawyer stayed long enough to confirm receipt. The compliance officer logged off. The investigator remained. "You'll be contacted if further clarification is needed," she said. "Until then, please refrain from outreach." The call ended. The screen went dark except for the chat history. Timestamps, file names, system confirmations. A notification chimed. Email delivery confirmed. Multiple recipients. No victory speech followed. No apology arrived. Just paperwork doing what it was designed to do. The folder stayed open on my desktop while another message arrived from the bank. Protective action initiated. The cursor hovered over nothing in particular. The documents no longer needed arranging. Everything that mattered had already been placed where it belonged. The laptop stayed open as the calendar refreshed, adding follow-up dates automatically, the system moving forward without waiting for anyone's feelings to catch up. Chuntam, back on track. The notice of cancellation arrived without drama. The loan application was voided. The account numbers were listed. The reason was stated as unresolved authorization issues. No blame assigned, just an outcome. A second message followed from the bank. My parents' profiles were now flagged as high risk. Lending would require additional review. Credit products would be limited. The language stayed neutral. The effect did not. A third email came from the law firm. Representation terminated. No explanation, no recommendation. The signature block was shorter than before. The family group chat went silent. No follow-up calls, no attempts at mediation. The urgency that once filled every message disappeared completely. Nobody offered to talk things through. Nobody asked what came next. My phone rang once that week. an unknown number. I let it go. At work, access returned slowly. The project I'd lost stayed reassigned, but no one mentioned the credit alert again. The system updated. The pause ended. Nothing else changed. There was no meeting with my parents, no apology demanded, no explanation requested. The documents had already said everything. The only message that came through from my mom arrived late one evening. "We never thought it would go this far." I didn't reply. Instead, boundaries became logistical. A new contact list replaced the old one. Family numbers moved into a separate group. Notifications were turned off. One line stayed active for emergencies only. No shared accounts, no shared access, no shared responsibility. The folder on my laptop was uploaded to cloud storage. Every receipt, every email, every revision log. The name stayed boring, dates stayed visible, nothing was edited or reorganized. Then the old message threads were deleted, not out of anger, out of utility. They no longer served a purpose. The banking app refreshed while I was finishing. A banner appeared at the top of the screen. "Your spending is back on track." The timing was perfect. The message was automatic. The relief it offered wasn't. I locked the phone. The car was parked where I'd left it earlier that day. The key turned. The dashboard lit up. No notifications followed. The route home stayed familiar. At a stoplight, another email arrived, a confirmation from the fraud department. The case remained open. Follow-up requests might come later. No action required at this time. The light changed. The car moved. There was no sense of victory, just clarity, the kind that settles after noise leaves. My parents didn't call again, neither did the lawyer. The system handled the rest. The driveway came into view. I didn't pull in. Instead, the car continued past, merging back into traffic. The phone stayed face down on the seat. The screen remained dark. No music played. No message interrupted. The road ahead stayed open while the parking lot faded behind me and the distance felt earned.